Right, so this is another of those short videos to discuss something that's been in the news that people keep asking me about. There was an article on Secret London last week, and there was a similar thing on My London, probably a few other places as well, saying that construction work was beginning next year on Crossrail 2, which is kind of true, but also not. So first of all, let's look at what Crossrail 2 actually is. It's essentially the sequel to Crossrail, which you probably know better as the Elizabeth line. Presumably if there's a third one, it will be called Crossrail 3, and the fourth one will be a reboot just called the Crossrail. Anyway, whereas the Elizabeth line is an east to west railway line, Crossrail 2 is to go north to south. The northern termini are Broxbourne and New Southgate. Large sections of it will be tunnelled from New Southgate and Tottenham Hale south through central London, intersecting with the Elizabeth line at Tottenham Court Road, heading through South London before surfacing in Wimbledon. The course of some of these tunnels is disputed, as you can see on the map. It will then divide to run over the suburban lines of South West London to Shepperton, Hampton Court, Chessington South, and Epsom. It's intended to serve many purposes, most obviously to provide better connections across central London, incorporating places like Chelsea and Hackney that are very busy but were rather left behind when the London Underground was built. The lines into Liverpool Street, Victoria and Waterloo are currently highly congested, and that impacts the frequency of services on the branch lines that feed into those main lines. Crossrail 2 is intended to bypass the busiest sections of those main lines, and thus allow the branch lines to get a more frequent service. It should also take some pressure off the Northern line. Now, I used the word will quite a bit back there, so let's be clear. This project has not been in any way confirmed. Actually, the plans seem to have been fairly static since 2015, having settled down a bit after about 50 or 60 years of trying to figure out which form this route should take. Several routes and types of railway have been taken into consideration since the early 1950s. For an awfully long time it looked like it was going to be a proper tube line, the Chelsea-Hackney line. It's also been proposed as a main line and as a sort of overground-style metro. Back in the 2010s they thought construction would be underway by 2023. Earlier plans reckoned they could have it up and running by then. But things have stalled. It seems likely that the plan I showed you is the one that will go ahead, if it goes ahead. But parliamentary approval has not been given, digging hasn't started, they haven't looked at colour swatches to decide which shade of purple this line will be. Do not get yourself all worked up just yet. So what's actually happening? I mean, there must be something happening, right? As part of the Crossrail 2 plan, there is intended to be an interchange at Euston/St Pancras. Now, Euston/St Pancras is a whole topic in itself, and maybe it'll get its own video someday. But the idea for the time being is this. The two stations are already quite close together, about 10 minutes walk apart. The Crossrail 2 platforms will lie between them, underground, to be precise, between Euston Station and the British Library. They are to be 250 metres long. There is to be a new entrance at Grafton Place in front of Euston Station, one at St Pancras, and one at the Thameslink platforms at St Pancras. The two stations aren't going to become one per se, at least not in this version of the plan, but it's going to be a situation like you've got at Liverpool Street and Moorgate, or Farringdon and Barbican, where the platforms are so long that they effectively connect with two stations, if that makes sense to you. This is obviously an enormous task to put into action. Both Euston and St Pancras are extremely busy stations. Euston itself is already slated for redevelopment as part of the High Speed 2 works, and before you type anything in the comments, I guarantee you nobody has anything original to say about High Speed 2 at this point. Assuming all goes ahead as planned, which is a big assumption at present, Euston-St Pancras would connect with an enormous number of lines, including both High Speed 1 and 2 and international routes. So it's a complex station. What's also happening in the not-too-distant future is an enormous development of the British Library. This will involve expanding the library itself massively, but also the creation of commercial space that will be aimed at companies in the science field. Apparently it's something they call the Knowledge Quarter, and let me just say that whoever introduced developers to the word quarter should be exiled from civilized society. It is the most overused cliché in the property lexicon after iconic. Anyway, planning permission for the library expansion was given in March this year. It should be going ahead next year. The point is this. As part of this development, there's to be a 6-storey basement that is specifically designed for Crossrail 2. On the Crossrail 2 plans, this is identified as Sites C and D, land owned by the British Library. That 6-storey basement will include an underground passage to St Pancras, a station shaft, and plant rooms, as in machinery plant. It's not like a secret growing operation or something. At least I hope not, but who knows with these librarians. The basic idea is that if/when Crossrail 2 actually happens, the British Library won't have wasted £1 billion and they won't have to demolish a load of stuff to let Crossrail through. It reminds me of these buildings along the Northern Line, which were originally themselves to be connected up to build a new express tube route after being used as air raid shelters. Cynics will point out that the express tube route was never built despite being identified as a priority, and that's a fair point. But I will say that unlike those, St Pancras is a prime site, so I dare say there are plenty of people who'd take that space off the library's hands if it was not needed. So the real story is that the British Library is going ahead with its redevelopment, and the building will incorporate a basement that will house a Crossrail 2 station if it happens. Construction is slated to begin in 2026 and will be completed by 2032. Whether Crossrail does happen or not remains in the air at the moment, as with a lot of rail projects. Still, if there's one thing a library can use, it's a great big basement. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like as ever to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the connecting tunnel to my underground site. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.